Hi there, Steve Kaufman here. Today I want to talk about content for beginners, and in particular, the tendency in most textbooks and in most classroom situations to begin by teaching how to sort of speak and get through certain situations. So normally we begin with introductions. Hello, my name is so and so. What is your name? And then we move to such things as what to say in a hotel lobby or at the train station or at the airport or going through customs and so forth. I guess the assumption is that many people learn languages because they want to travel. And there's nothing wrong with this content, nothing wrong at all. Any content is good when you're starting. But I guess what I question is the assumption that the learner will actually learn how to use those. I think the benefit of that content or any content is that the learner will start to get used to the language. But the learner, in my experience, and it's certainly the case with me, I don't learn then how to introduce myself, and then I'm not able to be sure that every time I meet someone, I'll be able to introduce myself in the new language. Chances are I will forget it. I will get it wrong. I'll know it for a while, and then I'll forget it. And that's even more so the case with situations like the bank, the train station, or any other sort of situation. I don't think it's possible to prepare yourself for what's going to happen in any of those situations. I think the goal has to be to improve your overall language level so that we are not so much learning how to say things as we are getting used to the language. And we're getting used to the language through content. And the best content for getting used to the language is content that's of interest. So that maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but the objective has to be to teach, to provide interesting content so that the learner's brain will start to form some rules and slowly accumulate some vocabulary which they'll learn and forget and learn and forget and eventually start to be able to use. But the idea that you can have a set sort of scenario, set conversations and dialogues, okay, now I've learned how to introduce myself and I know that forever and ever. And now I have learned how to deposit money at the bank, and now I have learned that forever and ever. Now, maybe I'm assuming things. Maybe that's not the assumption on the part of the textbook nor on the part of the learner. But I have seen that many learners go at it with that objective, that they can learn how to deal with a certain situation. And I don't believe you can do that. And even if if you're in a restaurant and you haven't learned how to order, steak, that's not the end of the world. You'll manage. Like there's no great downside risk. You don't need a big safety net. You'll point at something. You might remember one or two words. If it's really important to you, you'll look them up before you go. You'll forget when you get to the restaurant, but you'll have your little book handy and you'll look it up again. So I guess the whole idea is that the focus on beginning content should not be so much on trying to be utilitarian, trying to teach people how to deal with certain situations. I know the whole industry that teaches immigrants English in North America, they feel they're going to be very utilitarian. They're going to teach them what to say at a store. They're going to teach them how to deal with certain situations, just the basics, just that, what they need for their everyday lives. If someone's in a working situation, we'll only teach them the language that they need to work. I just don't believe that. I think that the goal at all times has to be to raise the level of the language and have somehow induce the learner to spend as much time with the language as possible in order to get used to the language, in order to acquire as many words as possible, on the assumption that the more words that the learner is exposed to, the greater likelihood that some will stick. And there's no predicting which ones will stick. It may be very important words that don't stick and unimportant ones that stick. And the kind of content that I think is really good is what some of our members are starting to do at Link, where we have some of our tutor members who are also learners in Japan or in Brazil, talking a little bit about their lives, a simple diary, a simple daily, here's what I did today, twittering type comments in the language. And if the learners then get interested in following that, the activities of that person in the language, if they are then motivated to learn about the person, about their lives, then they will start to absorb the language. And the advantage there is, whereas I think, as soon as we, after the, say, 3 or 4 months, then the content should be more natural conversation. But in the first few months, inevitably, it has to be written and recorded. But the more interesting we can make it, the better. And we don't have to follow the sort of introductions followed by the train station, followed by this other stuff. These sort of canned scenarios on the assumption that's going to help the person, how to buy groceries at the store. It won't. When the immigrant who's learned how to buy a banana goes to the store, the clerk will say something very quickly in English and the immigrant will be lost. Whereas if we say, don't worry about that, you can point for now when you're buying bananas, somehow you'll get through that situation. But in the meantime, let's raise the overall level of your English. And let's not have these minimalist expectations or utilitarian approaches to learning language. So, I mean, that's just, it's part of my whole sense that a lot of what is done traditionally, maybe I'm just a renegade or something. If I see, I get occasionally emails from TESOL, Teachers of English to Speakers of Other Languages. That's the name of their organization. Teachers of English to Speakers of Other Languages. That's a special organization. And they have seminars and they have books and they talk about things that most of them have probably heard many, many times before. They kind of reinforce all of their, I wouldn't say prejudices, but all of their established views. They're probably closely connected with the Center for Applied Linguistics, and they're all out lobbying for more money. And the amount of money that is spent on these organizations, it's a lot of fun. It's great. In the end, what comes out of that? A lot of redundant textbooks, redundant, exercises and stuff, when really all we need is the language. If we can get people producing content, talking in simple terms about their lives, for example, getting it up somewhere in audio and text for people to listen to, and some system, such as we have a link to allow people to navigate it, although ours can improve, we're working on improving it, so that people can find content, A, of interest, and B, at their level, and some means for them to go through and, pick out the words they don't know and learn them, and that's all. And then, when they're ready to speak, have some people available that they can speak to. I don't think it's more difficult. I don't think it's much more difficult than that. I really think that you can take all language learning and reduce it down essentially to what I have said. In other words, gradually sort of a range of content starting from very short bits, 30 seconds, 1 minute. Hello, today I got up, I had breakfast with my husband and children, and we went to school. That's what I did today. Listen to it 10, 15 times. And gradually going from that, eventually hitting conversations. In conversations, the vocabulary used is not very difficult, so that's good for a sort of an intermediate learner. They're picking up on the intonation, the rhythm of the language, and then you move to more and more difficult content, eventually into specialized content, professional content, literature, whatever. And along the way, when you're ready, you can talk to someone, and if you make some mistakes, they'll explain it to you, but you won't be required to remember the explanation because you're going to forget it anyway. And then they'll explain it again and again, and eventually you'll get used to the language. I think it all boils down to that. I'm, as usual, perhaps a little bit extreme. I look forward to hearing people's views. Thank you.